Hello, everyone. Welcome to this series of interviews we have organized at Cyen with top experts in cybersecurity to make it clear for you to shed light on regulation, on measures, and on threats. Today, we are very honored to have with us a very important person in the European cybersecurity space. This is Mr. Dan Cimpean, and he is board of director member of the newly established European Cybersecurity Competence Centre in Romania. Hello, Dan.
Hello, Eva, and thank you so much for the invitation from Cyen to this topic.
We're really honored to have you. And without further ado, I would like to launch this interview so that we can get as much as possible insights from your vast knowledge on the topic. We would discuss today the title of the interview's current cybersecurity threat landscape and how the EU joins forces in response. We would focus on the role of the European Cybersecurity Competence Centre, as this is something new and could potentially have a significant impact on building capacity for EU cybersecurity. And with this, the first question, many of our viewers are security pros, but even for those that are, it's not yet clear what is the status of the European Cybersecurity Competence Centre. When can we expect the centre to be fully operational?
Fully operational, that's a very complex question. What I can mention to you and to our audience is that the center at this moment has a fully operational board, governing board, where European Union member states are represented, where the European Commission is represented, but also ENISA it's invited as a permanent observer to the board. So the board is up and running, and it's having meetings, and we are looking forward for the next meeting that will be end of June, in about 1 month from now, hosted in Bucharest, in Romania. This center also, it's at this moment managed ad interim by staff from the European Commission, from DG Connect, and it has also an interim executive director and a team around him that is working very hard in the direction of getting the center operational. One extra thing I would like to highlight here, doesn't mean that at this moment programs, projects, activities of the center are not going on. They were already launched in the past months, so a number of calls for proposals were already issued for a broader audience from the cybersecurity community. Even these days, there are calls going on for the healthcare sector, and another one dedicated to the national coordination centers for capacity building of those national coordination centers that have to work with the ECCC. So it's a lot going on. Technically speaking, it's up and running, but at this moment is in this format. So with staff from Commission and with leadership from Commission working, of course, remotely with a fully operational board. And we are really looking forward, and I speak as a hosting country representative in the board, we are really looking forward to see the first ECCC staff members already working here locally in Bucharest, Romania.
Okay, that's great news. Great news for me as well. I was not aware. So the European Cybersecurity Competence Centre is already working. This is really good news for Europe. And the ECCC, it's the abbreviation of the center. Can you tell us a little bit more about what role it would have, this center? So it's already operational. What does it mean for industry and how different stakeholders could engage? You mentioned some project proposals. If you could elaborate on this, what kind of a project would be expected? What volume? Do you have any specific sectors in mind? And is there something else beyond project?
Thank you so much for the question. In the very first place, let's not forget the center has to be a hub. a hub that will gather together the community in the broader sense, in particular research, innovation, corporates dealing with cybersecurity, startups, entrepreneurs, but also very, very important, governmental bodies. So really the center, I would dare to say, through its strategic agenda, which is on the table of the board and on the table of the interim executive director, will set the priorities for European Union in terms of cybersecurity. Will set those topics that European Union shall focus on in terms of creating the necessary basis that shall allow EU to become maybe the most relevant and influential actor at global scale on the topic of cybersecurity. So in practice, this center, let's not forget, is not an European Union body that operates in isolation. It's surrounded by 27 national coordination centers that were established or appointed, designated by the EU member states. Those national coordination centers play an interface role between the center and the local cybersecurity community, disseminating information, supporting the community to apply for programs, projects, grants, and so on. The center shall be supported also by a strategic advisory group formed by 20 individuals, 20 experts that will provide input on the scientific, let me call them like that, scientific, technologic priorities that shall be further elaborated by the board, by the center. And from this perspective, we all expect that the center will be that agile and very capable and very visible actor at European Union level that will succeed to animate the community, will succeed to really make progressing a lot of research, innovation, awareness, cooperation, collaboration opportunities in Europe. I'm very afraid to step in and discuss any particular granular topic that is on the strategic agenda of the center or that is finance, because I'm afraid I will forget many others. Just to give a couple of examples from the top of my mind, of course, there is now priority in helping the national coordination centers to build the necessary capabilities and capacity and to get very fast connected with the community in the broader sense. It's working and focusing a lot on some cybersecurity hot topics like security operating centers, the next generation of security operating centers that we need absolutely in Europe at local level, at regional level, at European level, by economic sector, by industry, and so on. And of course, it's focusing on, let me put it like that, in incentivizing through grants and projects, of course, that is going to finance those high-end technology topics in cybersecurity that Europe needs to maintain the advancement and the upper hand, let me put it like that, in the European market, and not only. So quite a lot of interesting domains. Again, I'm very afraid not to miss one or another. The strategic agenda and the program of the center are very, very ambitious, and I invite our guests, our audience to consult and to check the website of the center, because there they are prepared in very, very detail. And also I invite them to keep an eye very, very careful and very closely on the open calls that go on and on under Digital Europe program cybersecurity and Horizon Europe program cybersecurity, because these are the two main vehicles that the center is handling in order to finance those topics and projects.
Okay, that's very, very helpful. And I would paste then the link to the center website in the comment section, so our audience could easily find it. But when you mentioned about the open calls, about from the different programs, how practically could stakeholders apply, or where can they find these open calls? Is it through the EU standard procedure, or is it through you directly?
No, these are EU standard procedures at this moment, so they can be found on TED Europa or directly on the website. Links to them directly on the website of the Center of DigiConnect, of many of the already appointed national coordination centers. But it's basically standard procedure for the Horizon Europe, for Digital Europe programs, and quite easy to find. And one message I want to pass here, it's the key for success is really team up. So I invite everyone, team up, universities with startups and with private businesses and with some governmental actors, join forces, propose an interesting topic, propose an interesting project, an interesting approach, and the chances to get it financed will be quite high. Of course, the evaluators will decide on that, but the key for success will be cross-border cooperation, and if that will not be possible because of the specific of the topic, of course, cooperation between several actors at national level at least.
This is a very good tip. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm sure it could help many of our viewers to succeed and hopefully get some of those projects running on their site. You also mentioned that the coordination centers, so are these coordination centers that were previously available for support of European projects, or would you establish, is it a new cell that you would establish to support you?
I would say, thank you so much for the question. I will dare to say it's old and new in the same time. And let me explain in a few words to the audience why. It depends a lot on how each member state approach the topic of National Coordination Center and the topic of ECCC. In some member states, the National Coordination Center was designated amongst already existing and already active cybersecurity authorities. And there are a couple of countries, like, for example, Belgium, where the National Coordination Center, it's CCB. So basically the National Cybersecurity Competent Authority. In other countries, like, for example, Romania, that I represent, we choose a different approach. In Romania, the National Cybersecurity Civilian Authority, it's the Romanian Cybersecurity Directorate that I'm leading. But the National Coordination Center, it's a different team, it's a different body, reporting also to the Prime Minister, but completely separated from the Directorate. So each country took a different approach. The most relevant thing is that we have variety, we have diversity, but also those bodies, they are all eager to interact, to talk to each other, and the most important thing, to facilitate and help participants, applicants for grants, for projects, to help them to get in contact with each other, to help them and guide them to do a good proposal for those grants, and finally obtain the absolutely necessary funds that are managed by the center.
Okay, that's also great information, very practical. That's where viewers should go, knock on the door of their local competence coordination centers to get the help necessary. You also mentioned the SOC, which the incident response part, I think monitoring and response is critical, and it's great to see that you are working also on that. You mentioned 20 experts that would advise also the board with advice on scientific and technology priorities. Is this an open call? Is it still open, or there's selection already done?
I would say at this moment, the process is still ongoing. It's in the hands of the board and of the center itself. That group was not yet established, not yet finalized. Technically speaking, according to the regulation, the executive director of the center shall make a proposition to the board with regards to this group of experts.
Okay, so it's appointments.
Yes, it's appointment, but it's still work in progress. It's still going on.
Okay, so now is the moment for our audience that is interested to make themselves visible and to propose their support. What we often think about cybersecurity is obviously the preparation, the measures, something that you already covered in your priorities, as well as the response to incidents. But all this depends on the cybersecurity threats. So depending what is the threat, there would be different measures that are most adequate to address it. And for this, I want to ask you how the new center would help Europe address the threat linked to the cyber war, for instance. Currently, we have seen in Ukraine, there's a pillar of cybersecurity going. There's a very strategic and targeted operations to destabilize the country. This probably touches upon critical infrastructure as well. But how the center would practically help, and probably it would be also a joint effort with industry and other stakeholders.
Thank you so much for the question. We all note, looking at the current geopolitical situation caused by the invasion of Russian Federation in Ukraine, we observe that a kinetic war has a cybersecurity component, a cyber component. So in parallel with the actual war, the hot war, there are attacks, a variety of attacks by a variety of actors. Some of them, I would call them semi-amateuristic actors, but actors that claimed themselves a clear affiliation with one side or another. So we see this cyber component for an actual war. We see it live now, unfortunately. Now, what the center could do in this context, in the very first place, before going in this direction, to clarify one aspect, the center will not have and shall not have, according to the regulation, operational tasks and capabilities and duties. So the center will not intervene in responding to incidents or responding to a particular attack or in restoring the infrastructure, etc. Because there is a bit of confusion here with some members of the audience. They think, oh, it's a new cybersecurity center. It's like a super cyber team that will walk all over the place and will help everyone. The role of the center will be mainly in supporting European Union, getting access to those technologies, tools, advanced technologies, advanced tools, procedures, ways of working, knowledge that will allow the European Union to be, on one hand, more resilient, on the other hand, to be able, in context like the current conflict, to be able to cooperate, to exchange information faster and better. So we'll really boost our capabilities from this perspective. So it's an indirect role, I would say, in supporting European Union to be a more active, resilient, and also swift and sharp actor with regards to cybersecurity incidents in context of a war. And one extra point I would like to highlight here, we noted it, and that's public info, what I'm sharing with you, that, for instance, attackers launched a diversity of attacks, in particular, now in the context Ukraine-Russia war, attacks that deployed spear phishing and ransomware and wipers, and also the good old traditional distributed denial of service. And in particular for the DDoS, I know because in Romania we're really targeted directly, and my own organization was targeted with this kind of DDoS attacks. What we noted, the attackers, first of all, they claimed in a very public manner that the attack is motivated by the support offered by European Union and by the member states to Ukraine. And what we noted, exactly the same vectors of attacks, the same tools, techniques, and protocols used were, first of all, geared towards one country, for example, Romania, about 3 weeks ago, 30th of April, 1st of May, it started. And then they moved to the next country, and then to the next country, and then to the next country. And in this context, exchanging very fast information and really talking to each other and really cooperating and having the right tools, the right communication channels, the right protocols between the countries proved to be the key to successfully contain the potential damage of those attacks. So the center can create even more of this resilience, even more of those capabilities, and really bring together not only the governmental parties, but very, very important, the private sector. Because let's not forget, many of the infrastructures, of the critical infrastructures, are in private hands, are in the hands of companies, of corporates, and they are the first actually to react and to do something at technical level, not the governmental bodies, the regulators.
Absolutely, this is very important point, and I'm sure that many, at least from the industry, would be cheering, because this is something that we've been asking for years, and there are already improvements in this direction. We have in ENISA, the European Cybersecurity Agency, which created different stakeholder groups as well as expert groups to feed this industry knowledge and agility in the process and in their projects. And again, we see then the cooperation. I just wonder, who would be your main interlocutors at the EU level? Would this be obviously the Commission, because it's initiative of the Commission? Then you would work with ENISA, I imagine, to support the government capacity. Who else? We have Cyclone, for instance, now is establishing. Who would be your key partners in that?
I dare to say, and I'm choosing carefully my words, virtually at this moment, in particular, with this geopolitical evolution and with this really very, very accelerated trend, because everything happens so fast. Attacks, technology evolution, the need to cooperate, problems pop up everywhere, solutions in the same time pop up everywhere. I would say our counterparties are virtually everyone. I know it sounds weird, but we realize that no governmental body, no European Union body on itself alone, it's strong enough, capable enough to handle the problem. So professionals realize at this moment that good old mechanisms like the CSER network, like the Cyclone crisis management related group, which, by the way, this week met in Paris and had a lot of interesting conversations over there. So all those actors, together with the private sectors, with the operators of essential services, with the technology providers, with the cybersecurity solution providers, I think we really need to engage everyone. Will be impossible for one member state on its own, only with governmental bodies, to withstand major cyber attacks that we see are growing in sophistication, intensity, in the way they target our infrastructures. So it'll be impossible for one single country to stand like that. And also what we noted during the last weeks, those cooperation mechanisms, they work, but we absolutely need them to be scaled up. And I will give one favorite example, the attack against the satellite infrastructure, the SATCOM one, that started a couple of weeks before the invasion in Ukraine. There were public statements right now, including from the Council of the European Union, on naming and shaming and blaming Russian Federation for its involvement in this. Some professionals may say, wow, 3 months to do attribution and to do all the to pull out all the cyber diplomacy toolbox tools and so on. That's fantastic. It's short. It's really accelerated time frame. So what we thought that will be a short time frame, 3 months, proved that it's not enough. So we need to move a lot faster. We need to be able to do responses in a coordinated manner. Government, owners of the infrastructure, like-minded countries from outside the European Union, and so on. So one message I wanted to convey here is getting even a higher need at this moment, a higher sense of urgency that we work closer, we align much better, and we provide coordinated response, whether it's a diplomatic response, name and shame kind of activities, whether it's a technology response. So we offer and we make available the tools that companies, governments, academia, citizens, everyone use in order to get more resilient and to protect themselves. Or we provide really the correct and the right level of intelligence and technical details, and we share them between us. So we need to work at multiple levels with multiple actors, but the keyword here is the keywords faster and more aligned.
Already, this is a huge leap from my perspective, to put in perspective what you just said. So from a cyber attack, anti-attribution, naming and shaming, it took 3 months. The previous time, the EU has done it for the first time using the cybersecurity diplomacy toolbox. It took them 3 years. So from 3 years between 2017 of WannaCry and 2020 with the sanctions, we really made the leap to 3 months. So to me, this is already amazing. And we have to go
It's
further.
amazing, but maybe we should now try 3 weeks.
3 weeks. So this is the objective for the next time. It's true that with our world goes faster and faster, and we cannot wait. We have to go faster as well. Just to say, chapeau, this is really already a great achievement from my perspective. And for our viewers, if you want to know more about cyber sanctions, we have panel discussion we organized last year following the US sanctions linked to the, again, a Russian cyber attack, attributed cyber attack in the US. SolarWind was known cyber attack. So we have this panel, we have discussed all the details of the diplomacy toolboxes of the EU, US, and ways of utilizing them. You could learn more about this topic. This is great, but what you said, the biggest threat that you see now are attacks that are really also popping up and targeting all member states are denial of distributed denial of service attacks, the DDoS attacks. We know that for those attacks, you usually take advantage, so you take different, usually IoT devices or computer stations that you take control over, and then you make them launch the attack for you. For this, it's very important to have the cyber resilience insight as well, not only at the government critical infrastructure level, but also at the personal IoT devices level. And at the EU, we have a number of legislative acts targeting these specific aspects. We have seen this year, in the beginning of the year, was adopted delegated regulation. I think so, act that enforces effectively all IoT to have cybersecurity requirements under the Radio Equipment Directive, which would come into force, so it would be applicable in 2023. And we also know there's the Cyber Resilience Act that is coming at the end of the year. It's still not very clear what would the scope be, but the idea is to indeed improve the cyber resilience on the internal market, probably targeting with horizontal legislation. Obviously, IoT would fall into that with some basic security measures. So from the policy perspective, and here you could maybe take your hat of either of the Director of Romanian National Security Centre Directorate or of the ECCC, what would be the top priorities you would like the EU to focus on the legislative agenda? So what would the Cyber Act should be about, and what other acts we need?
That's a tough one. That's a really tough one, and I will explain immediately why it's a tough question. Indeed, there are many regulatory initiatives, and we all know the policy life cycle is very long. and it has to be long because it has a gigantic impact on the market, on the economy, on all the actors involved, and it has to be thoroughly, let's say, discussed. Any such initiative agreed, aligned, and let's not forget, in European Union, it's a bit, in cybersecurity, it's a bit like herding cats. So many different views, many different priorities, and so on. So there are already a variety of regulatory acts in the making, or already almost finalized, like NIS Directive 2, which I very much hope to see it published before the summer.
Well, it was agreed, so I don't see why not publishing.
We'll wait and see. My message was,
it is not an attribution level of difficulties.
I know, but my message was, it was public, and I have to say it again, just get it done, just do it, just publish it. We'll figure out and we'll fine-tune details later on. But one message I would like to pass to the European policymakers that focus on cybersecurity would be the following. So I'm afraid that we focus a lot, of course, on regulation as such, but we don't focus enough on incentives, on the way, practical, pragmatic ways to incentivize the member states, to incentivize the businesses, the industry, to incentivize the academic sector to do faster and better and more. And one element that I would love to see from the European Union policymakers would be the following: to put, I should not say that because now I represent a member state, but I will say it on the record, to put a higher level of ambition for the member states, and to put in the policies and in all the acts that are in the making or almost ready to be done, more responsibility and more obligations for the member states. I mean, to match from national level the overall European Union effort. I mean, to really, if needed, oblige member states to match euro for euro the investment that the European Union makes, to match brain for brain the investment and the effort that European Union makes collectively. So to really get this traction and this balance between what happened at EU level and let's be honest, agendas, national strategies and priorities that we still have at the European Union member state level. So if there is one global topic that I would love to have the policymakers focus, will be also to insist a lot on this and get this lever to get the member states be a lot more active, allocate more resources from national level to cybersecurity, and also really move on a lot faster, because it takes time at EU level, it takes time at national level, and honestly, the cyber professionals, we run out of time because we have to respond fast, swift, and sharp, and we desperately need those regulatory tools, regulatory instruments in order to do our job.
Yes, this is very, from my perspective, very important as well. So I fully agree with you, and I thank you for bringing this on the table and being so strong and clear about this message. Often what we hear is, okay, member states, they don't have capacity, they don't want someone to tell them, so it's difficult to pass legislation. But it is true, here comes the member state saying, we want to do more, we need more incentives, we need more priorities, we need more budget to do that. So this is really great to see. I hope other member states are listening and watching us now, and they would take the this advice as well. Probably that's a little moment for commercial here. I'm writing a policy paper on the upcoming Cyber Resilience Act, what it should include, taking into consideration the legislative framework. So we review all these legislative files that are too many probably, as well as what national states have in their NIS implementation in their national legislation framework. And here is a spoiler alert, that majority of them indeed take NIS and put it in place, nothing more ambitious, but there are a couple of member states that do that. So why don't we all agree to go a little bit further, knowing each NIS review takes at least 5 years to get it running, and then reviewing until you put it in place again. So we can probably use also the center to raise the bar, and doesn't necessarily need to pass through the legislative cycle. So this paper is also with Ilana Kunkel. She is supporting me, an LLM student. So stay tuned. We would announce it in June. We would announce this paper. I think we have covered such a large ground. Basically, we covered the new center, all the priorities that should be on the table, legislative, technical, as well as cooperational to address the threats. Is there something else, Dan, that you wanted to share with our audience today?
One last message from my side. We need a change in the mindset and paradigm. Cybersecurity is no longer just a cost, it's an enabler. So I think if we all work with this idea in mind, we'll be able together to change a lot on the policy side, on the operational side, on the cooperation side, on the research and innovation side. So it's no longer a cost, it's an enabler.
Okay, this is really, really great. I will post some additional materials on this webinar that I presented how cybersecurity drives business value. So I have to say, it was really, really useful, insightful. Thank you for opening up and sharing very frankly what is the status, what are the objectives, what should they be. I really thank you on behalf of our audience, and thank you on behalf of Cyen for accepting our invitation, Dan. I will paste some links in the comment section where our audience could find reference to many of the points we discussed, including how to follow up the work of the Competence Center, where to look for projects, how to team up, as well as what are the additional resources we could provide on the cyber sanctions information, for instance, as well as the business value of cybersecurity. Thank you, Dan. You would be, if you agree, a regular guest to this interview series. We would like to know more in a year where we stand, what has happened with the center, as well as what priorities have already been tackled. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.